Well, Bill kicks unions' bosses' butts. It's hard to say. How's the budget looking? And does it really matter? And can stocks go up from here? I'm Peter Switzer.
I'm Paul Rickard.
And we're mad about money. Yesterday I wrote on switzer.com.au that Bill had a big test. The union bosses were trying to force Australian super and other industry super funds to force big companies to pay wage rises to their workers. And I said, hang on, directors from a super fund aren't allowed to do this sort of thing. Paul, are they allowed to do that?
No, they're not allowed to do this thing. I think you're claiming a big victory, Peter.
Wow.
Bill's kicked the union bosses' butts, according to the AFR this morning.
Yes, and it's good. It's just sort of showing you that, he understands what super's about. He
was the Minister for Financial Services.
Exactly right. And he knows that a director is supposed to act consistent with a thing called sole purpose test. Explain that, Paul.
Yeah, the sole purpose test says that the super fund exists solely for the purpose of providing retirement benefits for its members. Yeah. So, look, arguing about whether you get wage increases and doing those sort of things doesn't fit with the sole purpose test. And you've got to at all time go back to your obligations under law, and I think that's what he's saying to the fund. So, look, good on him for doing it. I mean, it had got out of hand. I suppose that was one of the things that we're always hoping for, that in government, when he becomes Prime Minister, he may be a little more pragmatic and move a little bit away from the left back towards more of the centre position on some of these issues. And
rule for the country, not the unions.
Rule for the country, not for the unions. But on the subject of super, Peter, how about this fee gouge from Australian Super, right?
Oh, no,
the so-called administration fee of $1.50 per week,
right,
which they charge their 2.2 million members.
Which is $1.50 is pretty cheap, isn't it?
Yeah, it is pretty cheap. It's going to rise to $2.25 a week from the 30th of March. That is a 50% increase.
Hoo-ha!
Oh, that's an extra $80 million a year. Gouge on members' monies from Australian Super. If a bank tried to increase the fee by 50%, we'd be having a royal commission. Yeah. Can an industry super fund do it? Of course they can. Any criticism? Have you heard much? Not a lot.
So there's no headlines in the newspapers?
No headlines in the newspapers.
Maybe we need to create it.
Maybe we need to make... And this is the trouble with having these... I mean, I think industry super funds have done a good job overall in many cases.
Like Australian super.
But some are getting too big and they're going to wield too much power. And I think that's one of the issues about... saying we just need to concentrate everything. I mean, I think the market's got to be careful of this, and we as potentially users of those funds and as members also need to make sure that they're properly governed and they are working in the best interests of their members.
And so maybe the next ad will be, this goes to...
we just gouge more, right?
All right, so...
How do you do that? I'm just trying to think of a phrase.
It's pretty hard. How's the budget looking, Paul? Because it's kind of good news there, isn't it?
Well, it is. I mean, this is Deloitte's have come up with their latest forecast, Peter, and we're going to do a lot on our budget breakfast coming up in a couple of weeks' time, if I can say that.
You're all invited.
But, look, the starting point for next year, according to Deloitte, is a surplus of about $9 billion.
Yeah.
So that means that I presume they'll want to have some type of reported surplus in the budget coming up in 2 weeks' time.
Or at least a very small deficit.
That means sort of $8 to $9 billion in tax cuts that I guess they're going to throw on the table. Yeah. So some sort of pre-election bribe. I won't use that. That's probably a little strong, but a pre-election handout. But are we going to care afterwards? I don't know.
Well, I think the bottom line is this, that, at least because the economy has been doing well and the job market's been doing well, that the actual tax collections have really grown. And it means that with an election, both the government and Labor will be making a whole lot of promises. At least we can afford them for this year. I would prefer them to be one-off tax cuts because we need to build the surplus up again in the other years. And it goes out to 20 billion.
Well, it does, but I mean, there's still some fairly heroic assumptions about growth. And I guess the important thing about the budget is it'll set the framework for what a shortened government can do, because the forecasts will come out of Treasury. They don't change readily. Yeah. And so whatever, Bill Shorten might be thinking about promising in the campaign, his framework will still come from what Treasury says next week or 2 weeks' time.
So it does matter.
It does matter. I think what Morrison promises, well, maybe we're going to get that matched anyhow. So I guess it's going to be a bit of, I'll do this and I'll up you as well. Who knows? But it has some flying. It is going to be important. It's on Tuesday, the 3rd of April.
Yeah, and Wednesday next morning.
Tuesday, the 2nd of April. Wednesday, the 3rd of April.
And Wednesday, the morning after, is our first Switzer budget breakfast at the Four Seasons in Sydney. Go to switzer.com.au to have a look at that one. Now, finally, can stocks go up from here, Paul?
Well, look, I guess I think there's so much cash floating around, Peter. Interest rates on hold. They're going to they can go up. I think a bit of a pullback is needed. I think we've go back to this grinding market, right?
Yeah.
Market rallies 400 or 500 points, now sits. It'll do a lot of work around here, a little bit under pressure, and I think there'll be another stimulus coming. The other thing I think I'd be really careful of at the moment is that we're seeing, because of what happened in Brazil with the accident with Vale, we're seeing a huge demand for iron ore, and that's what's driving BHP, Rio and Fortescue, and the rest of the market is going down because what happens when resources go up, the other stocks tend to get sold down. Right. So that's one of the reasons why the bank's a little bit weaker and the market's not actually making a lot of headway. I caution on people getting into resources at this point in the cycle. Yeah. I think they've had a great run. Doesn't mean they couldn't double in price from here, Peter, but no one...
So if you're in, you might stay a bit longer, but if you're not in, the upside is probably limited.
Yep, well, I would say it's limited, but no one has a record. None of the analysts are good at picking commodity prices. No one saw the accident in Brazil coming, so no one saw this recent spike up. And what we do know is when prices are high, production eventually gears up to meet it. And the major buyer, the Chinese, they get very good at managing this stuff, right? Yep. They don't want to see the price go up, and they'll do. I just caution people. If you missed the boat, you missed the boat. You just got to be really patient.
I sell-off could happen, but I think in the medium term, stocks can go up. Why? There's going to be a China deal eventually signed. The Fed is not raising interest rates. The EU is stimulating their economy. China's stimulating their economy. Our budget will be stimulating. The RBA could actually cut interest rates here. Trump can't have a stock market crash and recession before the November 2020, so he'll try to make it happen. As you've pointed out plenty of times, the amount of dividends coming out to Australians, what are they going to do with it? They're going to put it back in the stock market. Markets are still below the high before it fell off. And finally, Donald Trump is the most market-watching president of all time.
He is.
And I like that in the president.
Like him or loathe him,
right.
He cares about what the market is doing.
Yeah, I'm President Switzer.
I'm Paul Rickard.
And we're mad about money.